Thetis was like, and she must remain a virgin for the 30 days. And Perseus was like, all right, I'm out. I'm going to go. I got to go on this quest. This is super important right now. We got to do this. We got to finish this quest.
Perseus, buddy, there are easier ways to get laid. My God. Nerd Legion continues with our fruitless, I guess it's not technically fruitless, but our quest for no viewers, as it were, in our as our heroes in our 1980s fantasy movies are frequently on quests. We are on a quest to figure out what is the lowest viewership we can get as we dive into just pure B movie territory. So far, the answer is Hawk the Slayer. But I will say, Doa, our TikToks about Return of the King animated actually crazy popped off. Apparently, there's a lot of nostalgia for that film, which I didn't know because I never watched it as a kid.
I didn't expect it to be on TikTok. I will say that part of it did surprise me. Shout out to all you Tolkien lovers on TikTok. But it's a sentence I never thought I'd say in my entire life. But you know, we thought the Nerd Legion Culture Channel was growing a little bit too fast. You know, honestly. You know, we've seen success before in other endeavors that, you know, we've journeyed on in esports and things, and we're like, no, we got a little bit too famous before. You know, I don't want to get to the point where I need security to escort me everywhere again, like it was in League of Legends. I want to keep things low key now. So that's why I thought this 80s series was a great idea.
Also, Doe is afraid of the Marvel fans after he got millions of views for saying that Channing Tatum was not good casting as Gambit.
I'm not afraid of the Marvel fans. I'm afraid of Channing Tatum.
That's fair.
That guy could break me in half. I'm not going to lie. I'm sorry, Channing. I respect your love for the character, but...
Your head was too fat, just turns out. Anyway, that was my line. So.
Yeah, well, you said Sentinel head. I said Lego head. So it'll come for both of us at some point. For whom the bell tolls. Channing Tatum comes for you. But yeah, I mean, but this series has been so much fun, and I'm really excited about the movie we're watching today. I think it's going to be a good one. I would dare say it's the best quality film we've seen yet. In the series.
Time Bandits exists. Also Willow. Technically, that are part of this that we did earlier.
Oh, okay. If you're including this, then Willow is the top, I think. But if you're not including the ones that we did before we knew we were doing this series,
that's fair.
Then I would say out of the 3 we've done, including this one, this is the highest quality film we've done.
True. Yeah. And also definitely the most watched of the films. And we are in 1981 now, guys, which is why we're in Clash of the Titans. We are going to, by the way, get back to some more modern content. I know people, you know, maybe you want to see us do the Penguin. People have been asking about that. If you do, leave a comment below. We're going to get into Gundam Requiem for Vengeance, which is the new Netflix Gundam show in a couple of weeks. But before we get there, we are going to next episode do Excalibur, which is another, I mean, that's a very famous movie that was released in 1981. There's a lot of good ones that were released this year. So we will do one more episode continuing that. And then down the line, maybe we look at some of the Penguin. Doom Prophecy is coming out. Arcane obviously is coming out in November. So we'll be hitting up some more modern content during that time period. Also Uzumaki, as we said, at the end of October.
Yeah, we gotta really fit in a spooky one, right? It's spooky month. Halloween's coming up, so we gotta do at least one scary show, right?
Yeah, and I'm a big Junji Ito fan, so I haven't seen. I'm gonna wait to watch the new Uzumaki until it's all released, which happens on October 25th. So we will do it that following week. So you guys can look forward to that. So that kind of lays out our plans. But let's talk about Clash of the Titans, a supremely unfaithful retelling of the Perseus myth.
Sure.
That has, you know, of course, it was Harryhausen's last film, which is significant. So legendary, kind of practical effects, stop motion, effects artist who had many successes like Jason and the Argonauts and going all the way back to like the 60s, 50s. So actually huge that this was his final film.
Yeah, I want to jump in here for a second
Yeah.
because I kind of grew up on Harryhausen. My dad was a big
Hmm.
fan of those films when he was growing up. So, the Golden Voyage of Sinbad, Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, Valley of Guanji, Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, like all those Ray Harryhausen films are the films I watched growing up alongside of like the old Godzilla films and things like that. So I like Harryhausen and that stop motion sort of the stop motion style that he did was
Yeah.
like a very big part of my childhood, and I would say a very big part of what got me interested in fantasy to begin with, you know? And going back and watching it, there's this incredible charm to it. So I
Oh
was
yeah.
really excited to see this one because I actually hadn't seen this movie before, which is weird. I know,
Oh
right?
really?
With considering what I just said, yeah, where I watched all that stuff growing up, but for some reason we never quite got to that one. I've got a feeling it's because there's a little bit of nudity in it, and I've got a feeling that's why that wasn't shown to me along with the other ones. But yeah, for whatever reason, I didn't get to see it as a kid, so I was really excited to finally go back and watch it as an adult. It's been on my list forever, and
That's the
so
American
yeah,
that's the American way, Doa.
right?
Unending violence, A-okay. One shot of titties, no.
I know.
Puritanism, baby.
As an art major, as a someone who's specifically focused on life drawing, drawing the human
Mm,
form,
mhm.
the like scare the fright people have towards the naked body has
Mm.
always been hilarious to me because
As
we've all got
as
one.
a mammary enjoyer, it also confuses me.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, hey, we all wear clothes, but there's a naked person underneath all those clothes. Everyone you look at is naked under their clothes,
Amazing,
and
amazing
that's
insight,
okay.
Doa.
There you go. What do you expect?
Uh, so I will say like this film is very charming in many ways, and I certainly enjoyed it. But I am glad that this was Harryhausen's last film because by 1981, especially in the context of some of the other films we have watched or are watching,
Hmm.
I have to say his techniques that were really awesome and revolutionary during the 50s and 60s do seem pretty hokey and antiquated, especially when we're comparing it to other films of the era. Because remember, Star Wars came out in 77, and probably many of you actually never saw or have never seen or don't remember the original Star Wars effects because George Lucas has like gone on a mission to basically delete them from existence. But they were really
Purged.
good.
Yeah.
They still like hold up really well. Um,
Go find the
and
despecialized editions.
I know I
They're
still have
out
the
there.
VHS tapes. I still have the
Yeah,
VHS tapes.
you can find the
I'm
originals
hoarding
if you
them.
look. It's not hard. I
Yeah.
also have a VHS triple copy of the original
Yep.
theatrical releases, but
Yep.
I recommend the despecialized editions of Star Wars.
Sure.
They're really great, and they're working on a 4K version right now too. So
Yeah.
side note, go look those up if you want to watch original Star Wars.
But especially if you look at a lot of the effects that were coming out in the late 70s and early 80s, obviously Alien would be another one that ends up aging incredibly well even today.
Yeah.
This one does part, and look, the hokiness is part of its charm for sure, and it makes this movie endearing, but it is like objectively much worse than many other films that came out even years before this.
Yeah, I think it still feels classic in a good way.
Oh yeah,
And
for sure.
this really was, the last great
I'm just saying
adventure
I'm
fantasy
glad this was
epic
the end of
that
this. It needed to end
sure,
now. This movie
sure.
was a good ending point.
I agree. I think it did I think it did show Harryhausen at sort of the pinnacle of his ability, but also that recognition that that period of time where this was the way to do these effects was coming to an end, whether he liked it or not. And it is a bit bittersweet, right? Because there is such a charm to it. There is such a fun like life to it that exists that you don't get in like CG. You see a lot of CG stuff, right? And it just feels too smooth sometimes. And the
Yeah,
way
yeah.
this moves, because it was moved by a human being, there's a sort of randomness to it that feels lifelike. And I've always really appreciated that about this type of stop motion creature, right? So yeah, I love seeing it. It is kind of sad that it was the last one, but at the same time, things are moving on, right? So it was gonna happen whether he liked it or not. But it was great that he got to kind of do this like one last big epic in the style he wanted before he sort of hung up the jersey, so to speak. So yeah,
Well,
I loved it.
I also think that it's important to mention that it is very different. I was mentioning, some sci-fi films where it's easier to do models. And, well, I mean, the Alien, at least they used a guy in a suit, and like they had a very, Ridley Scott did a very good job of directing that movie in a way where the alien didn't look hokey.
Just make
But
everything dark.
it's make everything dark
Make
and
it
like
all
show
dark so they can't see it.
and only show it for half a second and half the body. Yeah, that's
how
how you do
it.
it.
Yep.
But they had some really good practical effects in there, obviously with the chest burster and everything.
Sure. Yeah.
So anyway, but the point is like it's a lot harder during this time period to do the fantasy organic components, because I mean, think about all of the very difficult effects that you would have to do practically in this film, like the Medusa and the Kraken and everything else. So doing the Medusa with all the snakes on the head moving, damn, that was hard in 1981. And actually, that's probably one of my favorite film scenes in this film.
Oh yeah, I think too when they fight the two-headed dog as well, and I just thought when that fight was going on, I was like, man, this looks really good. It looks like it's really in the environment. It's moving so well. Why is that? Why does this look so good compared to even some of the other stuff in the movie? And I was watching some behind the scenes stuff. I was watching an interview of Ray Harryhausen talking about it, and he said that they had to really recognize that whenever you do stop motion with a armature that has fur on it, you have to be very careful to not touch the fur any more than you need to, because you're going to see the fur kind of like jump around frame to frame, like you would see in, he mentioned the old Godzilla movie, which you can definitely see that happening. So they made it in a way where they could kind of do all the movements from just touching the back of it by the legs and leave the rest of it untouched. And I think it really shows where the fur looks surprisingly good and the movement looks surprisingly good for it, despite it being stop motion. So that in particular, I was really impressed with.
Yeah. So very, very fun watch. And also I think it is a mastery of this technique that we see from Harryhausen that is just really, really fun. And also, I think we got to lead with this up front because unfortunately, Maggie Smith died recently, but this is, a really iconic performance from her as Thetis in this movie. And she obviously had a very strong career before that and then after that as well. I've always really, really liked Maggie Smith, like Love Her in Gosford Park. A lot of her British period pieces are very entertaining. She just has this kind of like dry acid wit about her and intensity that she really brings to this film as well. She really feels like a god because she has a very kind of majestic presence all on her own.
Time you saw something of the world, Perseus. Time you came face to face with fear. Time to know the terrors of the dark and look on death.
Yeah, for sure. Funny enough, my wife and I are on watching through the Harry Potter films as well. So we just finished the second one.
Why would you do that to yourself?
They're just because they're fun. I like them. They're not the greatest films ever made, but I enjoyed them, and so it's been a fun watch through. And so we just finished the second one. Right around, it was just a day or two after she passed, and she was so good in those too. And I thought it was funny at the beginning of this. Obviously, her tune changes as the movie goes on, but it is funny beginning a movie to see Maggie Smith out there for advocating to protect a special child. Because I'm like, oh, that's very Harry Potter-esque of you, Maggie Smith. But obviously, her feelings on that special child change throughout the course of this film. But it is funny to see that as kind of the beginning of it. But yeah, I mean, should we just jump into it?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, I mean, it starts with a mom and a baby being put in a coffin and thrown into the sea. That's the best way to start.
Which is also hilarious because we just began right off the bat with like historical inaccuracies. Doa, why would they have a coffin? They're Greek. They burn their dead on pyres, especially during this period. That's all over Greek mythology. It's all over the Iliad. Everybody just being burned on pyres. So why do they build a coffin and throw them into the sea? Nobody would make a coffin.
It's a very seaworthy coffin too, actually. I expected it being that it
Shout out!
Like
it's a Moby Dick reference. It's a Moby Dick reference.
Oh, is it? Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't
know
that.
That's actually, a joke. That's a joke.
Oh, I didn't know
you just don't
either.
know Moby Dick. Okay. Anyway, moving on.
I've not read Moby Dick.
I'm sorry. I apologize for using classic literature references for you. I will try and tie this to like Dark Crystal and Star Wars more things that I know you know about. Okay.
You should. And if you are going to tie it to books, make sure you tie it to, limit yourself, please, to modern fantasy, and then also some of the Star Wars extended universe books from
Okay,
the 90s.
I will do that.
The courtship of Princess Leia, for instance. I was surprised, getting back to the movie, I was surprised that the coffin floated. I thought it was stone. I thought it was just going to sink. And I'm like, how are they going to get out of this? But they just kind of Moses their way off into the distance. But yeah, that was an ancient literary reference. That was a biblical reference for you there. Moses
that's
was
great.
putting the little bed of reeds and shoved down the river there.
Some of us consider that, a Moses reference. I personally consider that a Warcraft the movie reference. As we
you're right. That's true. That type of thing is much more known for the Warcraft movie.
It's crazy that God stole that from the Warcraft movie and then put it in the Bible. It's so weird.
And I know, right? He can be in all times and places, though. So he saw the Warcraft movie and then included it back then. Omnipresent. That's how it works. Yeah. But in all 4 dimensions. But it's but yeah, so that was an interesting way to start the movie. What shocked me with that is after you see that scene and Zeus is like, yeah, make sure they land on a nice island. You just get this really peppy music to start off, and I think the music in this movie is great, but it was a very abrupt tonal shift, and a great, in my opinion, start to the movie. I was thoroughly entertained.
Also, by the way, I was really afraid at the start of this movie that we'd see even more mythological inaccuracy, but I love how we start this scene, and by the way, Laurence Olivier just being Zeus, one of the most famous and probably famously skilled actors of his generation, legend of stage, Laurence Olivier, standing there and basically trying to be noble as Zeus. And I was like, oh my God, are they just going to make Zeus noble and this isn't going to be anything like the Greek gods? And then immediately afterwards, they're like, nah, actually, he just bangs everybody and produces illegitimate kids. I'm like, that's the Zeus I know, baby.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the truth about Greek mythology, man, is the gods are they're just messing things up for everybody else.
Pieces of shit all the time.
They are
constantly.
petty. Yeah, they're petty. I mean, Zeus, it's not just that he seduces people and
he just rapes them.
Well, yeah, but he also turns into animals to do it half the time too. And I'm like, Zeus.
Shout out goose rape.
Downright freaky.
I love the start of this though, because when it comes to how Perseus was conceived, obviously the woman is locked away by her father, and then Zeus goes in and impregnates her with a golden shower. That's just guys, that's just in the movie.
But Zeus transformed himself into a glittering shower of gold and visited her and loved her.
That's just in the movie. That's just a thing that happens.
The ways of Zeus are mysterious. I think they meant a shower of golden coins, but here in the year of our Lord 2024, there's different meanings to different phrases. So I will let you interpret that as you see fit.
Which, by the way, is how Perseus was conceived. That is actually very faithful to the original mythology. Zeus did, in fact, golden shower Danae, and she is the daughter of Acrisius, who's the king.
Wow.
So, and he was the king of Argos. So that part of it is accurate to the mythology. Later on, when we get to Bubo, the incredibly stupid robot owl, that
Owl 2D2,
you may be surprised to learn that is actually not part of the Greek texts.
There wasn't a part where Athena made a robot. Athena and Hephaestus made a robot owl. Like,
no,
I thought we were gonna wait longer to talk about this, but let's just talk about it now. Like,
fuck Bubo, man. Fuck Bubo. Fuck everything about Bubo.
This movie needed some comedy relief, and a bumbling,
falling
robo owl is exactly what the doctor ordered. But
his name is Bubo.
And obviously he shows up on screen. He makes sounds exactly like R2D2, and you're like, what the heck? This came out 4 years after Star Wars. 1 year after Empire Strikes Back. I'm like, And then I was reading up about it, and apparently Ray Harryhausen did say in interviews that it was not inspired by R2D2. In fact, he thought it up before Star Wars was released. And I'm like, I don't believe that for 1 second, Ray. I'm sorry. Like you're a legend, but like there is no way that you thought you were like, all right, but way back in 1976, you were like, which Star Wars even being made then, so we have to go back even farther. So 1974 or 5, you're like, someday in the early 1980s, I'm gonna make a robot owl that beeps, and
and also has
then
all
Star
the
Wars came
tools
out.
and gets them out of impossible
Yeah.
situations and is comedy relief and cute for the audience. No way, dude. No way.
Yeah, literally Deus ex machina. In every sense of the term, but also literally R2D2. That's why I think you could say R2 Bubo or Owl2D2
It honestly,
is my favorite,
honestly
but
just feels like some studio executive came into the room when they were writing this film and creating it, and they're like, "Guess what, guys? Star Wars is so popular. That R2D2 is so cute. We need an R2D2. Put him in a robot. How do you get a robot into this movie?" And they're like, "Well, I guess like Hephaestus worked with metal, and Athena."
yeah,
Symbol is an
loves her
owl,
owl.
so maybe we can make a robot owl that beeps. And they're like,
Well-
nailed it. And then that 80s executive did another rail of cocaine, and that's how Bubo was in the movie.
I would believe that. That sounds totally accurate to me. I mean, because you watch the movie and Athena's like, "No, I love my owl too much. I would never send him." But you could be like, why couldn't she just be like, "Okay, you can borrow the owl for a little bit. It's my owl. I'm a god. I can make sure it doesn't die." You don't feel like that would be too hard for Athena, and yet she's like, I need to make a robot owl with Hephaestus, and it shouldn't be just any Hephaestus. It should be played by the same guy who plays the big burly Nazi that Indiana Jones knocks into an airplane propeller in Indiana Jones and the Ark of the Covenant, Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's the name of that movie. And I guess technically he doesn't push him into the propeller. The guy just doesn't notice it coming. But it's that
I just
same
think
guy.
it's hilarious because Athena in the Iliad is extremely good at making sure the Greeks don't die, and even that they don't fight with each other. In fact, she takes such she literally restrains Achilles at points, right? She actually restrains Achilles from killing his allies at points in time because he's so pissed off about Perseus. So why she can't protect the stupid bird will always be a mystery.
Because robot birds are cool, Monty, and R2D2 is even cooler than R2 than a robot bird. So make a robot bird that sounds like R2D2, and is basically like one of the Three Stooges. It's like the fourth Stooge.
Also,
But
put
it's
out
a
there that
robot
she managed to protect Odysseus for like 10 years in the Odyssey. So
Yeah, I don't know. The owl is just it's a very fragile owl. All right. So basically, Zeus is like, no, this is my son. I'm protecting him. And everyone's like, well, Zeus, I mean, like, this king is, he's kind of got a right to be angry about you sort of impregnating his wife and all that. And Zeus is like, nah, destroy the city.
Destroy Argos! And to make certain that no stone stands, that no creature crawls, I command you to let loose the last of the Titans.
And so the Kraken is unleashed, although they don't say unleash the Kraken in this one.
yes, they
That
do.
was no, they don't say unleash the Kraken. They say a different term.
They
like,
say unleash the Kraken twice in this movie.
They say like let the Kraken be freed or something. They don't say the
they say
phrase,
unleash the Kraken. They do.
All right. Challenge to our editor. If you can find them saying unleash the Kraken in the 1980 and not the 2010 Clash of the Titans, feel free to put it on the screen right now.
You're going to be very sad.
Let loose the Kraken! Release the Kraken.
Was I
Oh,
right?
they say release the Kraken.
Ha!
You're right.
Ha! Ha! Put the clip up there anyway to humiliate Monty. Please put it up there again right now.
Let loose the Kraken! Release the Kraken.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you very much. Our
They say
editors are the best.
they say release the Kraken. You're right.
Aha. See, I know my memes. Don't question me. And I will say I thought the 2010 Clash of Titans was not good, but it was
I haven't seen it.
fun. It had like scorpion people in it, which is kind of neat. It's if you thought this one departed from Greek mythology, oh boy. You do get Liam Neeson as Zeus, which is fun.
More fun than Laurence
but-
Olivier?
Yeah, I would say so. I think Liam Neeson was a more fun Zeus in terms of just pure entertainment value. He was a more fun Zeus than Laurence Olivier. Laurence Olivier was also like apparently really ill when they were shooting this, and he still brought the energy, but he
And not in the
kinda-
1980s Beastie Boys way, right?
no, not no, and he wasn't down with the sickness like the Disturbed song either. Wow. What is wrong with us today?
I'm enjoying this.
what is going on here? But yeah, it's the Kraken was released. That's the important part. The city is destroyed, and everyone's like, "Wow, Zeus is kind of a dick," but nobody's gonna tell him because he's the boss, you know.
I love this.
Yeah.
I love this Doa because he gets angry because he impregnated a woman that he shouldn't have impregnated when her father got mad and disowned her as a result of Zeus's actions, which I don't know, he's a god, maybe he could have prevented that from happening in some way. He then takes out his rage upon the city of the people of Argus, despite the fact that he's the cause of it, which is a very Zeus, that feels right for Greek mythology. So I did appreciate that.
100 good deeds cannot atone for one murder. Nothing can wipe out or forgive this one contemptible act of blood.
But also, I mean, obviously, Zeus would never release the Titans. He actually had to defeat the Titans to take over control in the first place. And second off, the Kraken is a Viking. It's a Norse myth that is just shoehorned into this. Now, there is a sea monster.
Leviathan, wasn't it?
No, Cetus was a whale. So there is a sea monster in the story of Andromeda and of Perseus, but it is not the Kraken from Norse mythology. How they got this. And then on top of that, even in Norse mythology, the Kraken is supposed to be like a squid, right? When you think about the Kraken, you think about tentacles. And it's just some like man with an exoskeleton, like Crab Man in this movie.
He's got 4 arms. That's half an octopus. He kind of looks like the fish man from like what is that old horror movie?
Creature of the Black Lagoon.
Yeah, that one. It's like that. If Goro from Mortal Kombat and the creature from the Black Lagoon had a baby together, it would be the Kraken from Clash of the Titans. So that's where they got it from. Again, Ray Harryhausen, like I said earlier, is omnipresent. He's omniscient. He could be ever. So he saw Mortal Kombat in the 90s and then decided to include the 4 arms. Yeah, this is how it works. My favorite thing about the Kraken is not the Kraken itself, but how whenever Poseidon releases the Kraken, not unleashes the Kraken, he releases the Kraken. He goes to the gate and he's like cranking it, and then there's always a shot multiple times in the movie of Poseidon just going. I'm like, dude, this is your pet. Like, how amazed are you? He's just like, he's got this like expression like, whoa, Kraken.
Every time.
Together, Poseidon.
Poseidon loves the Kraken so much.
I cry every time, yeah.
And also, I mean, the Kraken gets released relatively frequently. You would think, it seems like it's kind of Zeus's go-to way to solve problems. So you'd think that Poseidon would be, more jaded by the Kraken at this point in time, less awestruck, perhaps, more of a humdrum occurrence. But no, every time.
Yeah, Zeus is at the grocery store. He's like, they put my milk on top of the eggs. Release the Kraken. How dare they?
Love it though.
Yeah,
10 out of 10 would watch Kraken again.
I agree. Would Kraken again. I like that Zeus is just like, he's such a big nerd, right? I mean, he not only
he's got his little figurine collection.
That's what I was going to talk about. He's got the complete set of Greek mortals action figures. He's got the entire line. He hasn't gotten around to painting them yet, so he's got a little bit of in Warhammer terms, he's got a little bit of a stack of shame. I know all about that. But I appreciate his desire to collect them all. He's got a little alcove for each one, and he can apparently control you from that. Like, if he doesn't like you, he just crushes your action figure, and that kills you. Or if you're like down for the count, like Perseus was, he just stands your figure up and you're okay again, I guess. So there's like a weird like sub thing going on with Zeus and his action figure collection here too. But hey, Laurence Olivier, if he wants to play with action figures on screen, go for it. He's deserved it.
It is one of the, if not the single weirdest part of this film, though, is that they look, I understand they're trying to represent the mortals as the playthings of the gods, and that they can be reshaped as will, like Calibos.
it's not a bad way to show it, really.
But
It's
it
just kind of
is
funny.
super funny.
Yeah, it's just a little bit funny, but it's not a bad way to show it. And overall, I liked the way they did things in this movie, the way they sort of presented it. It was very stage play like, which is kind of a throwback to sort of those 50s, 60s era fantasy kind of stuff too.
It also
Especially when it
is
comes to mythology.
it's very derivative of like the Sword and Sandals films of the 50s and 60s. So Ben
Exactly.
Hur, Spartacus, these kind of movies.
And I like that. A lot of these people were stage actors. Maggie Smith, Laurence Olivier. A lot of these people have a lot of stage acting experience, and that comes through. And I've always liked that style of line delivery. It's very big because you have to do it very big if you're on a stage in front of a crowd, and you can't get someone in the crowd can't see a tight emotional face shot, right? So everything has to be big. And I like that bigness comes through in the performances too. That is fun. And the movie's well shot in general too. So it's again like in terms of just quality, I think this is the highest quality of the three movies we've done in this series, outside of the other two we've done so far.
So anyway, Perseus grows up, on a distant shore, doing his rocky
Spoiled dweeb.
doing his rocky training beach montage, and then he gets randomly transported to Joppa, which is, I guess, somewhere in the Levant, in like Lebanon or something like that. And he just happens to meet a man coming out of an amphitheater wearing a Greek mask, because I guess this playwright just wears Greek theater masks all the time in order to scare people and make them think it's haunted for reasons that are never explained.
I like it. He just kind of keeps to himself. He wants this like old, theater, this old amphitheater to himself. So yeah, you play on people's superstitions. You just scare them away. With your Greek masks. They're like, oh no, there's Greeks in there. I guess we should run. But yeah, I like that. And of course and I like that he's kind of just unfazed by Perseus showing up too, which this person seems to be a little bit out there, so it's not surprising that he's not bothered by this guy kind of showing up out of nowhere. He's just like, oh cool, I guess the gods are up to stuff again. That's how they are. They do be like that sometimes. And he's just like, yeah, I'll just come along on your journey, why not? I think he's pretty chill. I like that guy.
Everybody needs a bard as a sidekick, right?
Or a minstrel of Gondor, maybe. But in this case we get Aemon, which is the guy's name.
And Perseus then magically, of course, Deus Ex Machina, which makes sense because the term Deus Ex Machina comes from Greek plays in the Greek theater where they would use like a crane or other devices to insert the gods. So there's a Deus Ex Machina in a Greek theater. Can't argue with that. That's just Greek theater, where all of a sudden he gets the magical instruments of war, which is the helmet that makes him invisible, the shield, which talks to him, and the sparkle sword that cuts Marvel.
Yeah, funny enough, getting a clothing object that makes him invisible is also another Harry Potter connection for Perseus here. It's J.K. Rowling, of course, as I mentioned earlier, is omniscient and omnipresent, so she was able to go back in time, or maybe just watch Clash of the Titans and then decide to give Harry Potter an invisibility cloak. But I digress. The thing that jumped out at me was that when the shield talked at first, I swore it was John Cleese. Go back and listen to it. It sounds just like John Cleese from Monty Python.
No! Try me first! Don't be wrong! Perseus! Perseus.
For at least that first line, I was like, how great would that be if for the rest of the movie he had a talking shield, but it was John Cleese, and it had that John Cleese style kind of sardonic humor to it.
To be fair, John Cleese later did equip heroes as Q in James Bond.
Yeah, fair enough. He did. And he did talk to them through those devices from time to time. Yep. So, yeah, all right. I'm glad he did go on to do that. That's a good point. But it would have been great if he could also be a shield, too. He's still alive. He still has a chance,
In the remake of Clash of the Titans 2028.
Yeah, or just imagine John Cleese voicing a magic sword, I think that would be great, where, the sword has very specific opinions about things and likes to voice them loudly, while the hero is trying to do all his stuff. That sounds great to me. I'll write that. John, if you're listening, I'll have have your people call me because I have no people. There you go. But so one other thing in the middle of this, while I got to this point in the movie, and one of my notes was kind of feeling surprised at just how uneven the special effects were at times, where the stop motion stuff looks very good. Some of the establishing shots, like the establishing shot of Olympus, looks awesome. Kind of the city kind of rising out of the fog among the mountaintops and all that looks great. But yet you see some of these some of these exterior shots where there's like objects green screened or double exposured in, and there's like thick blue lines around it. It just looks very poorly done, and I'm like, how does that happen? Where like the effects are so uneven sometimes in this movie, that it feels like some of them just either are rushed or they just couldn't figure out how to do it or something like that. But there are times where like some of the effects, especially like I said, the stuff that's green screened in, or double exposured in, really stands out and looks out of place. And that happened enough times to kind of,
well, like the
kinda stand
compositing
out.
too
Yeah.
it is a little obvious at times, but we're also saying that in retrospect. I can imagine that it would be quite spectacular to see some of these things. So they have to figure out how to get the actors into the stop motion scenes at times, right? With the stop motion
Generally.
creatures.
Yeah, like I said, generally it's really good. And I think the stop motion creatures are really the best part of this movie, and they look the best, and the characters interacting with them looks very good. It's more just like objects. Like when he's walking into Jaffa at the beginning, I think it is, and there's like one of the big winged bulls or whatever, and it's just so clearly kind of, it's like you did a bad Photoshop cutout of something and just like copy pasted it onto another photo and didn't do anything about the lighting or fix the edges or anything like that. And I was like, man, somebody could have spent a little extra time on that one maybe. But it's a nitpick, but the effects in this are very uneven at times.
Well, I mean, it has a pretty big budget. It was like 7-8 million budget, or I guess it says $9 to $15 million budget. It's a little unclear, but it made 70 million at the box office. This is really a very successful movie for the early 80s.
Oh yeah. So that's why it was surprising to me too, because I was surprised at how a shot like that could, get through in a movie that had so many other good effect shots. So basically to continue the story, there's this guy named Calibos, and there's this
who's
girl
Thetis's
named Andromeda.
son, very
Thetis's
crucially.
son. Yep. But Zeus doesn't like him. So
because he
turned him
killed
into-
all the winged horses. That bastard. Also not a part of mythology at all. There were no lots of winged horses. There was only Pegasus, but what? It's fine. It's fine.
Now there's
He
only
made
one.
and now that was only one. Stupid Calibos made the winged horses extinct, and that's why we don't have flying horses today. Hashtag
Oh.
fuck Calibos.
Oh, Calibos. Why? Calibos or Calibos?
Calibos.
Right? Okay, that's what I thought. You say Calibos, I say Calibos. Anyway, so Calibos, he turns into sort of this like goat man satyr kind of thing, but he's got a tail. And I thought the prosthetics, the makeup they give the actors really good actually, and they do such a great job. This is one of the things that stands out in the movie is the blending of an actor in makeup and a stop motion version of that character when they do the full body shots with the tail moving. They really edited it well so that the movement from shot to shot was very fluid when they shift from actor to miniature and back again and all that. It was really impressive actually how they did that with that character in particular throughout the movie. But I felt a little bit bad for him because, like, sure, he's maybe a little bit overly enthusiastic about his winged horse hunting, but was that really a reason to like ruin his life, to ruin his relationships, all that kind of stuff? Like Zeus, again, showing that he's kind of a petty guy.
Yeah, he's
And
very
I
petty.
feel like when I was watching through this movie, I felt like Perseus was kind of the entitled, spoiled
He
kid,
is.
spoiled rich kid. Yeah, totally. And Calibos isn't, the greatest person ever, but he's got some like very legitimate grievances throughout this whole thing. I'm like, I kind of felt bad for him a little bit.
That was on Team
Yeah.
Calibos.
I am a little bit. I think I'm a
He
little bit
thinks
on Team
Calibos did
Calibos.
nothing wrong besides make an entire race of winged horse extinct. I don't know.
Hey, that back in the day, they didn't understand things like population control and all that. He was a product of his times, okay?
We can't judge Calibos by today's standards, Zeus.
That's right.
Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Applying 2024 standards to Calibos, come on. But but I think, he did have some legitimate grievances. He had an engagement going, and it's kind of, I feel like it's a little bit unclear of how she felt about him, because at one point she was like, "Oh, I loved you," and then another point to Perseus, she's like, I didn't love him. I didn't love him, even before he was Goat Man. So I don't know. It's a little bit you know sus, as the kids say, with what their relationship was. But either way, he's all too or she's all too happy to get with Perseus later on. But let's talk about how they meet. Perseus just sneaks into her bedroom, because that's the type of thing that an entitled, spoiled, bastard son of a god would do. And he sees her spirit being kind of summoned by Calibos, because
And
it
put
turns
it
out
in a golden cage carried by a giant vulture.
yeah, because it turns out people keep trying to marry Andromeda, and Calibos keeps giving her riddles to tell them, and if they get
They're
it
not
wrong,
riddles, by the way.
they die.
Can I vent
They are
about this?
not riddles.
They're not fucking riddles. The riddle is like, what is Calibos's ring, which you would never know unless you literally went and
Yeah.
chopped off the hand of Calibos, which he does. This is not Greek mythology at all. The whole point of Greek mythology is there are really cool riddles there that are told by sphinxes, like in the story of Oedipus Rex. But no, we don't get a riddle. It's not a riddle that you can figure out. It's just a stupid guessing game about whether you know what Calibos is wearing that day. It's fucking dumb.
Yeah, it is. They're not very fair, and they are not very riddle-like in nature. But Perseus can turn invisible, so so apparently this happens a lot. So he sees it happen once, where she gets taken away. Her spirit does anyway, and then he's like, "All right, I gotta go chase that vulture at some point." So he goes and tames Pegasus, because why not? And he gets help, of course, because one thing you'll notice is that Perseus cannot accomplish anything in this film without somebody else's help. He doesn't do one single heroic thing on his own in the entire film. There is no growth for this character. He always just needs help, even to the extent where he's like climbing a cliff and he starts to fall, and some guy's like, "Oh," and he catches his foot.
He kills Medusa by himself.
Sure. Well, not by himself. He has other guys kind of like be bait,
Cannon
basically.
fodder.
Yeah, everyone else dies, so that the bottom line is, at the end of the day, a lot of people died so that Perseus could like get with Andromeda. And what does that really get us as a species?
It's very Greek. A lot of people had to
Yeah.
die so that Paris could get with Helen. A lot of people had to die for that one.
Yeah, and I don't know if I don't know if people really should die for that kind of reason, but I guess they were into it.
Joe,
back
in Greek
then.
mythology, a lot of people die for the pussy, okay? We just got to be okay with that. That's just how it went.
That's so true.
If you were hot enough, there were going to be a lot of dudes dying for you.
It was a freaky society for sure. So not Poseidon. So Perseus he was there when the next riddle is given out. So he's like, I know the answer because I cheated, but that's okay, because again, I'm an entitled, spoiled rich kid. And so then he kind of like saunters in and is like, well, I know the answer. Here it is. And they're like, yay, our long national nightmare is over. Andromeda can be married. And everything, and everyone lives happily ever after, at the end. Yeah. No. That's not how it works. But it could have. It could have gone that way, Monty. Except stupid Andromeda's mom, Cassiopeia, during like the wedding ceremony or whatever, or the betrothal announcement, was like, my daughter's so hot, she's even hotter than Thetis, the god
True,
whose
by the way.
temple we're in
Extremely,
right now.
extremely true. Extremely true.
Objectively, I agree, but I don't think it's wise. I don't think it's wise for Cassiopeia, again, to state this in the temple of the god that she's talking about.
Also, the patron god of your city.
Yeah. So not wise. Not wise.
Even more lovely than the goddess Thetis herself.
It was a very much John Lennon, "The Beatles are bigger than Jesus" moment for Cassiopeia, and Thetis did not appreciate that.
Also true, by the way. John Lennon was right.
Well, anyway, Thetis' face appears on a statue. She just bump maps her face onto the statue. And the statue is not really looking down at them, so it's kind of awkward because she's like delivering her condemnation, but she's kind of like looking up like this. And I'm like, well, maybe you should have picked a statue that was kind of looking down, or maybe you're a god, you can make the statue's head move or something. She's just like, oh, I'm so angry. Oh, how dare you say someone's hotter than me, right? And which I've been there. I've gotten angry for that too. So I understand where Thetis is coming from. And then she says, "All right, well, you gotta off Andromeda. You gotta give her to the Kraken in 30 days, or the city's getting krakened." And thus, really begins our journey, I would say.
Before we step into that, though, guys, we do have to say thank you to Mando for sponsoring this episode. Obviously, Perseus has a very long journey, and I imagine he may not smell very good, Doa, along this journey.
Not.
He's a very handsome man. He can't act, but we'll probably get into that. But if you do not want to reek like Perseus as you try and slay the Medusa in order to win the hand of lovely Andromeda, and also probably please Andromeda when she is near you, as opposed to being a sweaty, disgusting, and stinky mess, you may try Mando. And I would say, if you are going on a long journey, you may want to take some of their deodorant wipes with you, because if you are camping, you know, Perseus probably didn't have access to a shower, but those wipes from Mando, just go ahead, wipe your armpits down, your balls, your feet, whatever may be smelling on your body if you haven't had access to bathing facilities in quite some time. I bet he could have used those. And you can get that alongside everything else that Mando offers. They're now also offering spray-on deodorant, which is another option for you, where all you have to do is spray it on any part of your body that stinks, your balls, your armpit, whatever you want, and just let it'll dry very quickly, sprays on clear, and that's it. You're done. You are deodorized. You are protected from the creation of terrible body odor. But you can get stick deodorant as well. I've been enjoying their cream deodorant. But you guys can head on over and get their Mando starter pack, which is perfect for new people and to give it a try. Comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, and 2 free products of your choice, like the mini body wash or the deodorant wipes that I mentioned, and free shipping. And we have a discount code. New customers get $5 off that starter pack with our code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Of course, guys. And that will be using code NERD. Just NERD, not Nerd Legion. At shopmando.com, shopmando.com. There you go.
Yeah, remember the gods can send you armor and weapons and things like that, but they can't fix BO. They just don't understand it. For that, you need the power of Mando specifically. The mortals coming through yet again.
So then, of course, Perseus goes on his unhygienic, unwashed quest because he is told by some crazy witches, which is an awesome part of the film and definitely part of Greek mythology. The Stygian Witches did have one eye that they would transfer to each other. That's obviously like played up in the Hercules movie as well, the Disney animated one, where they have the fates like sharing the eye. It's a great comedic moment from Greek mythology. Three old crones sharing one eyeball. It's very fun.
He's kind of mean to them. You know, this is another entitled Perseus moment where he's like, haha, thanks a lot for the info. Hey, here's your eye, and he just tosses it in there, you know, makes them like root around for it in the garbage. And I'm like, wow, Perseus, did you really need to sink that low? And the answer is, of course. Of course Perseus would do that. 'Cause that's just who he is.
Give us back the eye! Give us the eye! We must have it!
Here. Catch.
But it is a great little comedy moment, and there was more humor in this film than I was expecting as it went on. Usually movies get like more serious. They put all the comedy stuff at the beginning. This one got like more comedic as time went on, and get ready, because this is about the time that we introduce none other than beloved Bubo. That's right. Not the owl of Athena, but the robo owl that Hephaestus makes for Athena to send in. And like I hope we can put some clips in it right now to illustrate this. But this robot owl sounds exactly like R2-D2 to the point where anyone who's seen Star Wars is going to be like, they just ripped off R2-D2. This is literally just the same character, only it's a robot owl instead of an astromech droid. Roll clips.
Too heavy for the dead brats, eh?
And he also is a Deus Ex Machina like R2-D2, where he just does things that need to happen, such as steal the eyeball when they go to the Stygian Witches, and Perseus is like, take their eyeball, then he just goes and gets it. Much like R2-D2 just has a random tool for every possible occasion within him, which is part of the charm of R2-D2. But Bubo is significantly more annoying and less charming and less fun.
I mean, to be fair, like R2-D2 was a tool specifically designed to have those purposes, which Luke intentionally brought along with him. Not to mention he had the message for Obi-Wan anyway in his memory. But whereas Bubo is just like, Perseus is useless. The gods need to send something to make sure he doesn't die. Here's Bubo. You know, what was Perseus going to do if Bubo wasn't around? He's like, hey, witches, and they'd immediately eat him. But no, he's got Bubo. So Bubo can actually solve the problems. So Perseus doesn't have to, chip his perfectly manicured nails. Yeah. He's out there abusing elderly women. But he's doing it in beautiful landscapes, too. This movie had a lot of great landscapes, establishing shots. They, a huge, I think, credit to them is that they didn't just film in different parts of California like every other, fantasy film did during that era. It wasn't all in a forest. They went to Europe. They went to, I think, parts of the UK, Italy, if I remember right. But they were all over the place, and the locations are very varied. That is one of the things that stands out, I think, too.
Yeah, it all looks really good. And so, from the witches, of course, we learn that our hero Perseus has to go slay Medusa, which is something that Perseus does in mythology, to get her head in order to defeats the Kraken, which is going to come kill them because he refuses to give up Andromeda. Personally, I would think the more heroic thing to do would be to be a little bit self-sacrificing, say, I don't know. I know I really think this chick is hot, but maybe we should save the city in which she lives. But no, not going to do that. Not going to do it. In fact, we're going to take the very hard road. He's so thirsty for that Andromeda pussy that he's going to go kill Snakehead Lady and then defeat the Kraken.
When Thetis was like, and she must remain a virgin for the 30 days, and Perseus was like, all right, I'm out. I'm going to go. I got to go on this quest. This is super important right now. We got to do this. We got to finish this quest.
Perseus, buddy, there are easier ways to get laid. My God.
But it doesn't matter to Perseus because he doesn't have to do any of the actual work anyway. So he's like, all right, everyone help me. I need this, and you need to help me get this. Back to Calibos for a moment. Perseus ends up fighting him a little bit earlier in the story and chopping off his hand. He brings it with him to solve the riddle, by the way. He's like, I know it's this ring because I got the guy's hand right here. And he throws it in there. And Calibos's former betrothed, Andromeda, instead of being like, oh, that's horrifying, he was so miserable, why would you inflict even more misery on him? She was like, that's pretty cool. Great, thanks. So a little bit callous, I think, from the Andromeda side of things. But, it's okay. Calibos will show up later on. But going back to Medusa, talk about people that were cursed by the gods. She is another person who was cursed by the gods to become hideous and not be able to interact with normal society. She's just out there trying to live her best Gorgon life. And, of course, our hero, Perseus, has to just come into her house and murder her. Was she hurting anyone? She wasn't leaving that place. She was just hanging out there. People who came
with her dog.
Yeah, exactly, with her dog. She was just living alone with her dog, and Perseus comes and kills both of them. How is this our hero? She was minding her own business. Sure, she was turning people to stone, but those were trespassers. She was protecting her property, which is her God-given right. Or maybe not. Maybe God-given isn't the right term here, but it was her right. And
on that island, she had to make my day law, which means that she can kill anybody who comes onto her property.
Exactly, yeah. And so clearly Perseus came there with premeditated murder in mind, stated multiple times, and everyone's just okay with this because again, he's got to get with Andromeda. So that means, and he's going to do it no matter how many people he has to kill and maim to get there. That's our Perseus, right? Yeah.
So I love this sequence too because the rightness or wrongness of Perseus aside, Perseus was in the wrong though. This sequence where he's like stalking the Medusa in the column room is very cool and is actually my favorite. I think it's my favorite scene in this whole movie in terms of action.
It's great, and we get that great two-headed dogfight before that too. But yeah, there's a lot of tension in it. The way they shoot Medusa, the way they have her crawling around, kind of using her arms to propel herself because she's got this kind of big, bulky snake body. They do make her look like a truly miserable creature, but also at the same time a very dangerous one. She's got this bow and arrow, and it's we know Perseus will triumph, right? That's the nature of the story, but they do manage to make the Medusa seem threatening and make it be like, all right, maybe it was a bad idea to come in here after all. Basically, everybody else that Perseus comes with dies, except for like two other guys, I think it was. So yeah, it's a fun scene, and you mentioned earlier too with the Medusa, it's all stop motion. Every snake on her head is always moving. The amount of time it must have taken to animate that is just kind of unfathomable. It's really impressive.
Yeah,
He cuts her head off in the end. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they go for the epic final battle with the Kraken, where, of course, all he has to do is pull out the Medusa. Well, actually, technically, Calibos gets to them first, and they have to have a giant scorpion fight.
Yeah, I was confused about that. I read later that apparently the blood of Medusa does make things grow and stuff, I guess. But I didn't know that, so I was like, okay, why is the head blood making giant scorpions appear? But again, cool stop motion fight scene. The last of the people who went out to help Perseus are killed, and Perseus has to make it on his own for once, but he can't even do that. He's flying with Pegasus. He makes it back to the island. He's about to pull out the head and turn the Kraken to stone, but he can't get the bag open, and the Kraken just knocks him into the water. And you're like, wow, Perseus is absolutely useless. Like, he tied that bag himself. That's on you, Perseus. That's one of the things where it's like, it was one of those moments where, you tie your shoe, and when you're untying it, for some reason the knot doesn't quite work, and you get that little extra knot that you have to like pick at with your fingernails to like unwrap, and you're like, oh geez, it's taking another 30 seconds. It's like that situation, only you're trying to get a Medusa head out of a bag. And so Perseus can't do it. He's knocked into the water, or the bag is knocked into the water, I think it is, or either he and the bag or both. I can't remember. But once again, Bubo saves the day, grabs the bag and delivers it, and once again, Perseus achieves victory through someone else handing it to him.
And Zeus also empowering him once again. And at the end, the best part is that so Perseus and Andromeda get married, right? And then Zeus just protects them. He's like, nobody else gonna hurt them, right? And right. then he makes them constellations at the end. So truly a blessed journey for Perseus, where he didn't, not kind of a pun on his name, but he faced no persecution at any point in time throughout this entire film.
Yeah. Everyone just wanted to help him, whether they knew other people died.
He was too good looking. Either they were captivated by his handsomeness, or he was just, everything was just smoothed over by Zeus the entire time, and there was never any real danger that he was a part of. Just completely blessed through life. Must be nice.
Yeah, and credit to Harry Hamlin, who played Perseus in the movie.
He's terrible.
He did a good job of. He looks very heroic with his curly hair and chiseled jaw and all that, but. The interesting fact that I learned about him is that he actually came back to reprise his role as Perseus in the God of War 2 video game,
which is a great casting choice, by the way.
That's crazy. What a deep cut that was. So fun fact about our Perseus actor there, but yeah, everybody just wants to help him, I guess. And again,
I think he, Harry Hamlin, though, as much as I love the fact that they recast him as Perseus in the original God of War games, I do think So first off, this is one of those times where he is not given any room to act, so it may not be his fault, but the character is incredibly boring. He has virtually no facial expressions. He is there basically just to be hot muscle guy fighting stuff, which is fine, right? It's fine. That's what this character is designed to be, but it's not a good role, and he doesn't play it particularly well, and he is weirdly probably the least memorable part of this movie.
Yeah, I mean, he plays his role well, but like you said, he's not given a lot to do.
There's nothing for him to do in this role. The role itself is very boring, and like you say, it's because he has no agency throughout this entire movie, because it's stripped. Anytime he would actually be able to like emote or show difficulty, the problem is instantly solved by somebody else.
He does a lot of this, where it's like, hard, this is hard, and then he gets hit or something. He's like, it's a lot of like anguish, and then someone else bails him out. But on the bright side for Harry Hamlin, he's gone on to have a very successful acting career. He's been on television to this day, to the year 2024. He's still appearing in various shows. So he's gone on to work, probably more things than nearly everybody else on this movie. Which is pretty impressive. So had a long acting career, still has a long acting career, it's still going right now. But yeah, Perseus. Funny enough, Arnold Schwarzenegger was in the running for being Perseus in this movie, and they decided to go against it because they didn't want someone that built. They wanted someone who looked more lithe and athletic. Which, I mean, Harry Hamlin was a little bit thinner. Arnold Schwarzenegger, this was early 80s, was during his giant bodybuilder
right
phase,
yeah,
right?
and we will get to Arnold in that
guy.
phase, because he gets cast as Conan the Barbarian just a few years after this, so
Exactly,
we will be getting Conan the Barbarian. Obviously people know Arnold Schwarzenegger winning the bodybuilding competitions, and Harry Hamlin looks like an athletic guy, but he doesn't look like he is in the middle of like cutting water weights and body fat percentage for a bodybuilding, final or whatever, right? Like he looks like a normal muscular guy, which I appreciate in this, right? I appreciate that.
Yeah, totally. It was good casting, I think. And again, he's gone on to be in a lot of different things. Hundreds of episodes of stuff since then. But we kind of come to the end of the story. The Kraken is turned to stone, then falls apart. Poor Poseidon. I kind of picture Poseidon at the end of this like Malakili in Return of the Jedi, after the Rancor is killed, where it's just like it was his pet. He was maybe going to free it eventually, not just release it, but just genuinely free the Kraken. And which sounds like a euphemism, but anyway, let's move on. And he's just going to be sad about that. So I kind of feel bad for Poseidon. You can't see that he's crying because he's underwater. But the emotion is there, So the Kraken is dead. And L2D2, Bubo, looks like maybe he was smashed against some rocks and stuff, but he's okay. Don't worry, kids.
No!
Bubo's fine. You can get your Bubo action figure and act out your Bubo fantasies without the knowledge that he's dead. Kid stuff, come on. And then like you said, Zeus is like, nobody's gonna mess with him ever again, and everyone's like, man, Zeus sucks. We're gonna make a lot of these people into constellations. And then they did. Even Cassiopeia, who just trash talked her patron god, and then kind of caused all this stuff, or at least the second half of the story to begin with. She even gets a constellation. I don't know about that, but she did. So
it was just Zeus being mean to Thetis by giving her the constellation too, right?
Right.
It's just,
I know.
Just egging Thetis on.
Poor
But anyway,
Thetis.
If you haven't watched this movie, I think it's a really fun one. Like it is. It's very entertaining. It's a classic. It is very silly in many ways, but also just a pretty core part of pop culture history, right? I mean, a lot of really iconic imagery, as you say, lines, especially around the Kraken, the Norse mythology, inexplicably stuck in here. I actually think that this was just, I'm getting it now. This was actually just a preview of the new God of War video games where Kratos goes to Norse mythology. That's what it was. It was the hybridization of Norse and Greek mythology just 40 years earlier.
Well, again, with Harry Hamlin being Poseidon in the God of War, a video game too, maybe that was indicating that this happens in the same universe.
The signs were there all along.
As Clash of the Titans. That's right. Crossover event of the century, right? This is an Avengers level event. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right, But we're all stars now. And we're bettered by watching Clash of the Titans. And I almost think it shares kind of a vibe with Stranger Things. And I know that sounds weird to say when I say that initially, but roll with me on this.
All right, I'm listening.
Stranger Things is very much a love letter and a callback to a certain type of film from decades past. And that's what this is too, right? Where this was made in 1981, but yet it was very much a callback to the vibe and type of adventure fantasy films, mythological films that existed in the 50s and the 60s. So again, going back about 20, 30 years, right? So it shares that similar thing with this desire to recapture this warm, nostalgic feeling of the adventures of your youth, right? And I think it did that. I think I would imagine, I wasn't alive, obviously, in 1981, but I would imagine for the people that saw that was pleasant to sort of again feel that vibe of those adventure films from the 60s, the Sinbad films, the other ones I mentioned, the older Harryhausen stuff, and have kind of one last hurrah with that. And now we look back at it and we're like, oh, that looks very early 80s, but what it really looks is even older than that, and it's by design. So it's interesting to think about it from that perspective too. And it really is this unique microcosm of filmmaking in this decade that we're covering here. So yeah, I absolutely recommend it. It's really, really fun just from the effects again alone. And the story is goofy and big and epic, and the hero doesn't seem very heroic when you really think about it, but don't think about it too much because you're not supposed to. It's just supposed to be a dumb fantasy adventure, and so you can also just enjoy it from that perspective too. The hero gets the girl in the end.
Also, Bubo sucks. We can all agree that Bubo is the worst.
That's right. Bubo is very much the R2, the Grogu, the what have you, the comedy relief for kids,
The Basil, if we're going with the Star Wars acolyte.
Don't bring up acolyte again. No, we've had enough of that. Yeah,
no Bubos, no Basils. That's what I want in my TV and film experiences.
The only mistake they made with Bubo is making him mechanical, because then you can't really sell plush versions of it. That's the biggest problem with Bubo from a marketing perspective.
Well, they learned later on, Noah. How to sell toys more effectively. Well, anyway, guys, that'll wrap up Clash of the Titans for us. We're going to stay in 1981. Lots of good movies in 1981, including our next film, Excalibur. And then after Excalibur, we will go back to some modern stuff for you guys for a little bit, because there's a lot of stuff coming out that we should talk about. And then at some point down the road, we will do more of our 1980s fantasy marathon. Hope you guys have been enjoying it. We'll see you next week.